glad to have you join us on another edition of Money Matters on TV360 Nigeria. I am Adeshawa Odushoga. Coronavirus has so far been making headlines since it broke out across the world in January 2020. The epidemic, which originated from Wuhan in China, has had a huge impact on the global economy, slowing down business activities. As a result of the continued spread of the virus across the world, economists have made a focus of stagnant growth in the world's economy. As a matter of fact, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, in its report revealed that the world's economy could grow at the slowest rate since 2009 this year due to the coronavirus outbreak. The virus has also taken its toll on the stock market as investors begin to pull away over fears of the epidemic. The stock markets of Dow, FTSE and Nikkei has since the outbreak repeatedly closed in the bear market territory, no thanks to the novel coronavirus. There have also been a drop in the sale of some commodities, but this is of course with the exceptions of items like the face mask, liquid soaps, as well as hand sanitizers. Talking about sanitizers, its demands have surged across the globe, forcing retailers to ration supplies and online vendors to hike prices. According to data published on Tuesday by market research firm Kantar, UK, hand sanitizer sales saw a year-on-year increase of 255% in February. Meanwhile, the British shoppers were buying 7% more liquid hand soap and spent 10% more on household cleaners compared to February 2019. According to reports in Italy, where over 2,000 cases of the coronavirus and 52 deaths have been confirmed so far, sales of hand soaps were up 29%. Hand sanitizer sales soared by 1,807% in the week ending February 15 compared to the same week a year earlier. Adobe Analytics reportedly showed in a report that demands for hand sanitizers in the U.S. spiked by 1,400% between December and January. Hand sanitizer purchases in the United States were reportedly up 73% during the 4 week until February 22nd, with analysts predicting sales won't peak for some time. This report is of course not limited to online stores like Amazon, Walgreens and Walmart, where hand sanitizer gels have reportedly sold out. And in Nigeria, barely 24 hours after the country recorded its first case of coronavirus, scarcity of sanitizers, face masks, and other protective apparel hits major cities, which includes Lagos and Abuja. Many Nigerians took to their social media handles to recount their experiences, with frustrating accounts of the difficulties encountered in getting basic safety materials. Owners of pharmaceutical stores and supermarkets are beginning to exploit the situation as they increase the price of face masks and infrared thermometers and hand sanitizers between 150% to 300%. Pictures of sanitizers bought at exorbitant prices began to surface on social media, where, for example, a box of 50 masks, which used to cost 700 naira, now costs 3,500 naira. A bottle of hand sanitizer that usually went for 700 naira was selling for 4,000 naira, and a bottle of sanitizer which went for 950 naira was being sold by pharmacies for 19,950 naira. In quick response to this exploitation, the Chief Executive Officer of the Consumer Protection Council, CPC, Babatunde Irukere, issued a statement to say hand sanitizer vendors and shops dispensing the product are guilty of price gouging. While speaking via his Twitter handle, Irukere said, and quote, "Price gouging is unreasonable and unjustifiable increase in price of a commodity on account of a surge in demand because of an emergency. Whether natural or otherwise, there is the public health concern that qualifies. This is a violation of law. In some countries, it's a felony." We'll now take a short break here, and when we return, we'll discuss better how the outbreak of coronavirus is affecting our revenue and the 2020 budget in the long term. Stay with us.
Corruption not in my country.
How work?
Oh, correct, Oga.
What is it that you are doing?
Oga, they come out the part now. Make we go sell for.
Oga, na correct kuzabi this. Oga Titus and him boys them. They do one.
They will commot the original parts, sell them, make plenty kusa.
No wonder our customers bring the generator back to our workshop because they're bad. And not because of stuff.
Now because they overuse the generator. Plus say, NEPA no they give them electricity.
Ngwanu, before I open my eye, Makachuku look at my talk in the heaven. Replace this original generator parts back inside this generator of my customer. In short, before we do frog jump. One. Frog jump. 1, 2, 1. Stealing of generator parts or changing of original parts to a fake one. That is the corruption. Not in my country.
Corruption not in my country.
Stop corruption now.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we've been discussing the effect of the coronavirus disease on the world's economy. And there have been a series of drop in oil prices owing to the fears of the widespread of the coronavirus disease. Nigeria is on the verge of experiencing yet another budget deficit in the year 2020 as global oil price continues to drop below the benchmark of $57 a barrel.
We are concerned because it does have an impact on revenue. And at the current crude oil price of 53% is below the budget benchmarks. So what we're doing is we're studying the situation, and when the budget was passed, we committed to doing a mid-term review. So when we do the mid-term review, if the revenues are so significantly affected, we'll have to do some revisions in the budget by way of budget adjustment. But I also want to inform this meeting that the crude oil production is now at 2 million barrels per day, and in some days it has even moved up to 2.1 million barrels per day. So that in itself would be a cushion, but all the same, we are not taking any measures now until we have a reasonable period within which we make a review, and then we may need to do an adjustment to the budget through working together with the National Assembly.
Corruption not in my country.
Now yeah.
Yes, Oga. Okay. Where I go come find 300 naira change?
I better try look for change now. When they do business. Hey, Timmy. I did, bro. I be. I beg, give me 200 naira. Make I take sort out this guy. Blessing no get change.
Take it, give us.
I said 200.
Give her 100 naira.
Yeah.
Okay, I agree to pay 200.
How much you think they carry people from that place we carry on the chair?
Okay.
Why they touch me?
Now 100 naira. He agreed to pay.
Because that was what you said was the fair. Why you not going to pay you? Why you they extort your customer? You see this corruption, what would they hear for news? They see for people everywhere. Now be this. This is corruption, not in our country.
Corruption not in my country.
Stop corruption now.
The outbreak of the deadly novel coronavirus, our first global oil price to drop as the world continues to record an increasing death toll. Analysts have, however, been reacting to these figures, and we have more next report. With dissipated demands owed to the outbreak of the epidemic coronavirus, oil prices have plunged into the bear market. This is particularly no good news for Nigeria, as its 2020 budget is under a threat of deficit since the global oil price dropped below its benchmark of $57 a barrel. Analysts have said the sustained decrease in the oil price will have a significant effect on the budget's funding.
Well, certainly it will increase the deficit significantly if this decline in price is sustained for a long period. The only hope is that the number of months that the coronavirus impact is supposed to be felt could be reduced, if as expected, by the end of April, when China is getting out and the rest of the northern hemisphere, actually China, Europe, getting out of winter into spring and summer, that the coronavirus impact will begin to rapidly decline, together with the containment measures being taken by Europe and China and all the countries. If that happens, then the impact will be for perhaps 2 or 3 months, and we'll expect prices to pick up. If they don't pick up, then it will be very significant to the extent that oil and gas revenues, especially foreign exchange, constitute a very, very large part of our income and revenue reflected in the budget. So definitely the impact will be direct, the deficit will be impacted, and the capacity of government to reduce expenditure is limited because most of the revenue expenditures which are funded from the budgets cannot be significantly reduced. We cannot reduce salaries, we cannot reduce recurrent expenditures for most of our institutions below certain fixed levels. There is even the pressure for meeting the minimum wage, which means that in fact expenditures are rising throughout now to the end of the year to meet the minimum wage and several other programs that government has committed. So it's a very direct impact on our deficits if it is sustained for more than 2 or 3 months.
There is no way we can escape the impact of coronavirus in Nigeria. And even if we don't have the huge pandemic, because we know probably how to handle it, because of the case of Ebola, and there's some other pandemic we've been able to handle it very well. But it is not about us. We live in the global economy will definitely affect us. And the world, as they say, is a global village, so it affects everybody. Whatever affects China right now will definitely affect the world, because first and foremost, you have to know that they are doing a lot of factory shutdown. It started in Wuhan, and from Wuhan, we realized that a lot of other places are shut down. We're talking about tens of millions of people are not at work for a very long time. So factory shutdown means that there won't be demand. Then the demand is demand and supply. So China gets some of the things that they use for production from outside the country. So now factory shutdown. Another major problem, the impact, is that this results in the oil price being hit very hard. Why? Because it affects everything. It affects transportation, air transport, road transport and everything. So it also affects production. So when oil price drops, because production is affected, it affects Nigeria. How does it affect us? We're talking about more than 70% of our revenue comes from oil. So there is no way we can escape it. It jitters. We are not an inward economy. We depend so much on petrodollars that we sell. So, and if petrodollars is not coming, and we'll be hugely affected. We base our budget based on the oil price. And it's been dwindling, it's been falling, making it to be very difficult. So we need to brace ourselves for the impact. It's going to hugely affect us. If it goes this way, because now the coronavirus is spreading to Europe and spreading to other parts of the country. Italy seems like it's not being well handled. It's getting out of hand. You can imagine huge sports like the El Clasico, which is one of the biggest games in Europe, are going to be played on their closed doors.
Lower oil prices may force the Central Bank of Nigeria to devalue one of the world's most stable currencies, since negative terms of the trade shock drives down the real exchange rate. But analysts is having a counter-opinion on this notion.
The Naira devaluation may or may not be connected, in the sense that while a lot of us looking at the economy still talk about oil revenue, especially the foreign exchange, as far as it affects the rates, the foreign exchange rates, the reality is that the economy is now much more dependent on diaspora remittances, much more dependent on that than on oil. So the impact on the foreign exchange itself may not be as high as generally speculated, because right now the diaspora earnings are about 2 or 3 times higher than the foreign currency earning from oil and gas. So that is not devaluation is not the primary concern. Devaluation is more the concern about the revenue of the federal government. That is where the decline in oil prices will be heavily impacted. But with or without oil, we have very significant inflows that continue to rise actually from diaspora remittances. We also have foreign direct investments that continue to be stable or rise irrespective of the oil prices. Some of the foreign direct investment inflows are linked to long-term projects that are not related to short-term incidences like the coronavirus. Some of them are linked to major projects like the Nigeria LNG, like the Mambila, like the $600 million steel plant in Kaduna State. Most of these projects are long-term with fixed commitments that have nothing to do with short-term fluctuations. So we expect to see very significant, strong cash flows in foreign currency coming in that are totally unrelated to things like the short dynamics of movement in oil prices.
Before now, there has been rumors about Naira devaluation or no devaluation. Why? Because some economists have seen that the numbers are not adding up. Because it's like we are holding the Naira, CBN is trying to hold the Naira at 360 as much as they can. But the numbers are not adding up. We have huge debt to revenue ratio is very high. And at the same time, we keep borrowing more. And the oil price that we rely on, as I told you, is dropping. So I can't predict that exactly, but I think it should be expected because there is no way we can escape devaluation. The numbers are not adding up. The government is trying their best to make sure that there is no devaluation. But one way or the other, you can't hold it for too long.
With the looming impact the epidemic virus has had on the global economy, there are fears that Nigeria may slip into recession due to its heavy dependence on importation.
The factors that led to our recession are much more complex than just an incident like the coronavirus. There are a large number of factors that led to the recession. A number of those factors have been addressed. The current foreign exchange regime that essentially lies on the investment and exporters window for foreign exchange means that we do not face a direct foreign currency risk that will impact the whole economy just because of the coronavirus situation and the short-term fall in oil prices. Also, there are fundamental changes in the economy from the rapid rise of agriculture, from our very, very close approach and imminent self-sufficiency in a product like food products like rice, which means those factors that led to recession, where we were spending about 30 to 40% of our import bill on rice and petroleum products, have changed. The dynamics have changed. Some sectors of the economy that were heavily dependent on imports are no more that dependent. The only product group that are still heavily dependent are petroleum products, refined petroleum products. And so we believe that the recession is not likely to arise from any of these specific incidences.
China has been dropped from 5.7 to 5.0. Then from 5.0, a week ago, it's been dropped to 4.5. So that is the same way Nigeria has been struggling with 2-point-something economic growth. And I'm not sure we'll be able to get even one if this coronavirus pandemic stays. So very likely there is going to be a recession.
As the epidemic coronavirus continues to spread across the world, despite travel bans, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, has lowered global GDP forecast to 2.4%, the lowest since the 2008 financial crisis. Adishawa Odushoga, TV360, Lagos. Well, as analysts have predicted, we hope to see the novel coronavirus, also known as COVID-19, fade out by April this year, and maybe then economic activities will begin to boom. And that's why we draw the curtain on today's edition of Money Matters. To watch us again, it's simple. Just visit our website at www.tv360nigeria.com, and our YouTube channel is TV360 Nigeria, and of course, all of our social media platforms. I am Adeshewa Odushoga.